Today's property preservation training with preservationwatch.com. We're going to go over how to start a property preservation business the legal way. A lot of times nationals, regionals reach out to contractors they see on Craigslist, advertising a lawn care business, and they'll call them and tell them they got a lot of work in their area, grass cuts maybe, and maybe they'll say snow removals or something, but they never really seem to get to the gist of what needs done, which is that you could potentially, as a lawnmower, be out to a property and have to do roof work or something of that nature. So I want to make sure you guys are protecting yourselves and minimizing your liability in the business, because there's no reason for you to assume liability for a company that doesn't even operate legally anyways, which is the national preservation companies, and all the states they work in are not licensed or registered for the work they do. So what will end up happening in that case is they'll come back on you and you'll be responsible for the stuff. And there's really no excuse not to do something right. I mean, just because they don't doesn't mean that you need to follow their lead. It's important to your business, your reputation, to make sure you're doing the right things, and making sure you're properly set up for your business. Property preservation is exception to that rule, and that a lot of times, like I said, companies will be contacted and they won't be given the full rundown of the work they may complete, and I just want to make sure that you guys don't accept that liability or whatever if you're not aware what the preservation business requires. So let's be real quick and just go over some of the things that you want to do when you're starting to open a property preservation business or are looking into getting in it. The first thing you want to do is research the companies that are contacting you or that you want to contact. Google their names, see if you can find anything in Google. A lot of times there will be either a rip-off report for a company, or there will be a video review on YouTube or something from a contractor that didn't get paid. Just make sure you do your research now, because after your $20, $30, $40, $50,000, after they're in your pocket that much, it's not going to be the easiest to go back and say, well, shit, I should have looked up this company. Get that out of the way now. And you can make your own judgment. I mean, sometimes, I'm not saying all nationals are bad and all nationals rip everybody off, but sometimes you can see that, the review's loaded or something, and it just goes on and on and on. There's a particular one in particular that I seen, and that was First Rate Field Services Online, and they are a class act. That contractor came on there and basically accused him of not paying, and then First Rate got on there and said, well, you're not really familiar with what it takes to run a business properly. Well, the thing is I did research on First Rate. They're not doing their business properly either, so I guess, it's like the kettle calling the pot black. It don't work that way. If you're not going to lead by example, then you shouldn't be opening your mouth. But that's not what stopped it, or not what I want to talk about with that one. First Rate went on there and rebutted the ripoff complaint. I don't know how many times, a dozen different times, with fake profiles. And you could just tell that it was an employee or somebody associated with First Rate Field Services. I mean, they just spoke about how damn great they were, and how property preservation contractors didn't know what they were doing until they started working with First Rate, and blah, blah, blah. It was all a bunch of shit. First Rate rips people off, and they don't fricking do business the right way. So they shouldn't even be doing business to begin with. But anyways, the second thing you want to do is check out your license requirements. Each city, state has a set of guidelines. Not all states require that you're licensed. Property preservation doesn't have a license. but the work you do does require licenses such as general contractor licenses, roofing licenses, electrical licenses, plumbing licenses, EPA lead renovator license for doing any window glazing, siding repairs, or anything of that nature requires an EPA lead renovator license, and that's about a $300, $350 for that license. And it's a full day license. And then after you're done with that, they run your background check and everything, and you submit an application, and then you'll get your license in the mail. But you don't want to mess around with an EPA claim for lead because it gets ugly. They go into the neighbor's yard, they go into the neighbor's backyard, everywhere, and they look for traces of any chips or anything that indicates that lead was drug across the yard, and they will bang you seriously with a huge cleanup fee for that and a fine for doing the work without the proper licensing. And then finally, check out your competition. There's a lot of property preservation companies out there. I mean, there could easily be a million and people wouldn't even know it because there's so many. And, they closed down like Taylor and Sons or something when they were Phoenix and opened up as something new, and people just don't know it. But you want to check your competition because you don't want to cover an area where you've got 500 contractors, and they only get 10 work orders a month. So you really want to make sure that you check that out because the nationals and regionals will also sign the work based off of your scorecard and who can get it done the soonest and correctly. So definitely check out your competition and see what you got for businesses in the area that are doing the work. Second thing you want to do is apply for property preservation contractor positions, and there is a link below in the description to online applications for property preservation companies. Typically, most contractors won't go direct with a national right away because nationals will bury you in paperwork and use all your money up quickly, and they don't accept, that you can't afford to do a job or whatever. So you might want to look at some regionals or something to begin with. I was fortunate enough that when I started out direct with a guy, and the relationship was just amazing. And in fact, when I started going direct with nationals, he didn't want to continue to do business with me because, we had our thing and I was able to charge him as I wanted to. The work was getting done, whatever. And he said he just didn't feel like it was necessary to cloud it with a national preservation company in the mix or whatever. But, definitely look and see what you can find for regionals and smaller mom and pops. And again, do your research on those companies. Usually they will do an interview and then accept you and continue on in the process, which includes training, signing documents, signing the contract. Make sure you review that, have your attorney review it, post it up in your office so you know exactly what you're looking at every time you do a job. This will be when you purchase your insurance. Safeguard usually sends out an email before your interview and says, don't buy any of these things yet. We'll let you know. And then after your interview, they'll say, okay, you need to go ahead and purchase your insurance in our lock sets. I do recommend hitting a link on preservationwatch.com for property preservation supplies. They'll save you some money, plus it keeps money out of Safeguard's pocket, who runs MFS Supply. Including work comp on your insurance, guys, gals, if you have employees or somebody that is helping you, it is important to get the work comp when it's required. It's god awful expensive, but that injury to that employee without work comp is going to be way, 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 way more than that. Plus, the state's going to fine you for that, and you're going to be looking at some serious trouble. So if your state requires work comp and you have somebody helping you 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week, and you're paying them, you need to have that person covered. I don't have any tolerance for not carrying work comp on employees. I've had, when I was safety rep for the largest union in the United States, my job all day was to fight for people that were injured on the work to get them compensated and to shut down equipment that wasn't safe for employees. I got zero tolerance for somebody that won't carry work comp on an employee just sheerly because of the cost of it. It's a state requirement. Some states require for the first 3 years you go through the state for your work comp, which means you'll go through your labor commissioner and they will actually issue your work comp policy. The other thing is when you don't carry work comp and someone gets hurt, the individual sues your state and your state will turn around and sue you for damages. Basically, the state will pay the person and they will come and recoup from you with penalties, no problem. And you will probably never be a contractor again, not carrying work comp until you can prove that you're willing and able to do the work properly. Apply for any licenses that you need at this time. You might need a general contractor's license in your state. You might need a mold certification. There's about 5 states that require mold certification, and you can rest assured that these bank houses will have mold in them. Purchase your supplies, including PPE for your guys. Get face masks, gloves, eye protection, ear protection, things of those nature. Your insurance company will like to see that. OSHA requires that, although they require the employer, which would actually be the National Property Preservation Company, although they somehow seem to get away with not claiming that. They control your whole business and tell you when and what to do and the materials to use it. And they claim they don't have any responsibility to provide that stuff for you. Make sure you carry PPE in your vehicles, in your office. We went through an OSHA inspection with a former employee, and thankfully I had taken pictures of the trucks that needed cleaned out by my guys, and in there was a box of respirators, eyeglasses, all of those things. And this was taken 5 months prior to the OSHA investigation, which cost us about $3,800 in legal fees to have our attorney present for the day. Sat the whole organization down and interviewed all of them. OSHA did. And I was able to present that picture showing that I did, in fact, provide PPE. Plus, I showed countless receipts of property preservation supplies that were purchased online and personal protective equipment that was purchased for employees online as well. So make sure you cover your butt there. That's not a joking matter. If an employee is exposed to mold and you're not providing the PPE for it, come back and sue you, and OSHA will also sue you for failing to comply with the general duty clause. So you want to definitely make sure that you're protecting your guys. It's not a laughing matter when you're out mowing the lawn and somebody gets hit in the eye with a rock and there's no eye protection. That's an OSHA recordable injury, and OSHA requires that you have to record that with them. And, if your investigation shows that the guy wasn't wearing eye protection, or you say that he was and it's apparent that he wasn't, you'll also get it for falsifying a federal document. So you definitely want to make sure you're covering your employees, purchasing your supplies, PPE, and make sure that they sign off on that. If you keep your PPE in a certain spot or something, make sure they sign off that they know the location of it. You're not required to hand it out to them, but you're definitely required to possess it and make it available to them. So if in the shop you have a box with a bunch of gloves, make sure they know where that box is and have them sign off on it for your protection and theirs. And lastly, we'll complete training. That's a loose term with property preservation because their training generally consists of their individual computer systems and don't really get into the meat and potatoes of the work or what they expect, which is what makes it interesting when they deny work back. Most companies, with the exception of Field Assets, who does a small video on grass cuts and their expectations, do not provide any photos or anything to show you exactly what you'll be getting into. Most of it's got to do with Debt Collection Practices Act, Privacy Acts, and things of that nature. So when it comes to property preservation training, you're kind of on your own. That's why we make this channel available and our website available at preservationwatch.com, so that guys that want to get into property preservation or don't understand it have a resource they can go to with a real life experience. So that's what you need to do to start a property preservation business the right way. I recommend you, again, make sure you have your butt in gear and your stuff in order with licenses, insurance, any kind of trainings or anything that you need to have done by your state, and check with your local. Where I'm at, there's a state requirement for a general contractor's license, but there's also counties that have a local contractor license requirement. So my general contractor's license doesn't work in those cities where they require that I have a local license as well, which we did. We carried a builder's license and our electrician's license through those buildings, through those counties. So, make sure you double check state and local building requirements, because a lot of the work you'll be doing isn't grass cuts, but more so remodels and repairs on bank homes that require permitting and things of that nature. So good luck, guys. Thanks.